I think starting now, I am probably gonna stop claiming everything as being a conspiracy theory. um, I wouldn't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but oftentimes, like when it comes to famous people or politics or things like I don't have my hands on, or you're like you don't know the person, or you really can't see how things are happening behind the scenes. I'm always like trying to claim that there's another agenda or there's something else going on, right? And a lot of times I do believe it, don't get me wrong, and I don't really want to name and debate on what those things actually are, but I just wanted to put out there like it's important to recognize that humans are literally just that. We're just human, right? And so I know like one thing that had came up was Kobe Bryant and his daughter passing away in the helicopter crash, and how that could be something that's a conspiracy theory. Coronavirus being a conspiracy theory. And while sometimes the points appear valid, after a while, you have to come back to humanity and be able to say, like, but these are people, right? Like, it's possibly very true that people are dying and that life was short for his daughter and all of everyone else's daughters who were on the helicopter. And then with coronavirus, like, it's very possible that a lot of older people are passing away, and so where does the humanity come in, where we kind of set a boundary and say, but it's very possible. And I think that is the logic of many conspiracies, not necessarily conspiracy theorists, but the theories themselves. It's the idea that anything is possible, and that statement is more true than you may believe, but literally anything is possible in this world. And so when you don't have power, when you don't have control over something, when you don't see things often, when you don't know people that are on this level, you start to feel like these things could possibly be happening. And so that's the idea of like the conspiracy. Like, there is such a possibility that these things can happen, and there is, right? But there's also a possibility that those things aren't happening, and exactly what they're showing us is exactly what happened. And so it really is a 50-50 game. But the other part, and I think I mentioned this in my last podcast, but the idea of I don't know if I'm using the correct English term, like double entendre. Being human also means that you won't know everything, right? Like, there is so much of the unknown that you'll never know. And so while we're looking at things as being 50-50, more of our mind is probably going to go into the unknown because that's what we want to know. It's almost like, here's the what you're showing us, but we want to know the truth. And it's like, that could be the truth, but it also could not be. And so oftentimes for humans, the truth doesn't become the truth until you get an experience. And that can apply across the board, right? Like, a lot of times things don't become real to you until you experience it. And so it's interesting being human because it's almost like we want to know everything for everything to be true, and we need to experience those things for it to be true. But you may never get the opportunity to experience everything, and so I have people like in my circle who oftentimes will be like, it's important not to glorify other people who are in the entertainment industry, and look at, not that politics is completely horrible, because I can't really talk on this extremely like I would like to here. Because, if you vote, if you have the party that you are more characteristic of, that is your choice. And so I don't want to make anyone feel like, oh, what you're doing is crazy. But I personally just don't partake in politics. I have no want to do it right now. when I get older, I do think my viewpoint is going to change because I'm becoming more educated and knowledgeable about the impact that voting for more of your local runners or politicians, how much of an impact that could have on your communities. But when it comes to like the overall country politics and what that looks like, I'm really just not a fan, and I'm really not into the graphics and the separation of there being a red versus blue, right? Like everything isn't so black and white like that. And so a lot of how I look at stuff is just like I can't involve myself in things that I can't get clarity from and that I could be easily swayed by. And so those types of things, in my opinion, are entertainment. It is politics. It is certain industries where power exists. You know, you could even take that idea as far as the medical, pharmaceutical industry, you know, if you wanted to, but that's just kind of like where my mind lies about these things. And so I try to keep like this middle ground in conversations and around people often. And I try to play like that nonchalant attitude, like, you know, I'm gonna be cool because I really don't want to rough it up any feathers. I don't want people to feel like I'm always debating or combating how they feel, or that they can't enjoy what entertainment is put here for, what politics is made for. You know, like that is for you to participate in. It is for you to enjoy. It is for you to have some say so and to have a voice. But so much of it, to me, more so is just like you could be so easily deceived, right? And I'm not religious. Like, I know hearing me talk about like deception and being in certain fields and sectors of the world that can make you blind to reality sounds like I am, but I'm really not that religious. I am definitely more spiritual, but I would say like if it came to religion, I am into praying. Like prayer has worked for me throughout my entire life, and I saw it work for me more so when I was younger because that was where my faith was at that time. I had been raised praying, and so I just prayed all the time, every night. And no matter what I had gone through, I needed to pray, right? And so prayer, I saw that and experienced that, and it got me through a lot of things. Now, the reason why I say like I'm not completely religious is because I don't believe that everything is just thrown to God. I know a lot of people in my family and a lot of people who I'm around, like they'll say, well, you know, just give it to God and let go and things like that. And that is so easier said than done. And hopefully I'm not ruffling any feathers now. But the concept of like let go and let God, in my opinion, should come more so into play when you no longer have the next move or next action you can take. When God has literally shown you that you've done everything you could, so now it's my turn, right? Because I think like when people say that, it almost takes the responsibility off of them. But if you have it in you, the strength, the courage, the ability, the resources to go do what it is that you're needing to do or you're wanting to do, God has placed all of that so you can go do that. And so my belief system really is a mixture of a belief in a God who's also a higher power to me, but that plus the actions that you're taking in this world, right? I don't feel like you're going to be your greater self if you're not making any effort and you think that just talking to God is going to do everything. Like, you have to be self-reflecting. You have to be taking the actions to be humane. You have to be making some progress in setting goals. You have to be looking at where you want to be and saying, how do I get there? And I guess the overall word for that would be proactive. Like, I believe that it takes your higher power and proactiveness in order for you to be your best self. And so that's just my thought on that. But I definitely still don't think I'm religious. I think I'm more spiritual. But I did grow up in a religious family. My maternal side of the family was Jehovah's Witness, and then um, my mother, her father was actually a Baptist, and then my dad's side didn't really claim any type of religious thought, but they did go to church, and the churches we predominantly went to were non-denominational, but I would say they practiced more so Christianity, if anything. And it was just interesting, like, being in between these types of religions and seeing the differences. But I would say, if anything, as much as it sounds like it can confuse the shit out of you, like as much as it seems like those are too many religions to try to keep up with, it provides you such a strong foundation about who God is. And then on your own, you start to decide, who is my higher power to me? And what relationship have I established and do I want to establish, right? And so I would say, if anything, I'm grateful for being introduced to so many different religions for that reason. But I have learned over time that I'm just not a person who goes to church. I'm just not into that, even though I have found church in so many phases of my life that have made me feel like this is family. I remember when I was in high school, I lived in California, and basically to occupy myself other than going to school and being part of dance classes and dance groups and having practices after school, I wanted to involve myself in something more, and I was ready to like meet people who were my age, and no offense, but meet Black people who were my age. And it just so happened to be a church down the street from my school. And one of my closest friends was going there with her family. And I believe I started going with her, if I'm not mistaken. And then that's what made me continue to go. And I would go by myself, like even days that her family didn't go. My family would support me, the family that I lived with in California, and they would come with me sometimes. But I found that I was growing connections there, that people were invested in me, and that I felt like I belonged. And so at times in my life, church was a place where I was looking for acceptance, and I was looking for belongingness and some type of community, because I was away from my primary family, who were my parents, and so being in California, being young, trying to find myself, it was just like, hey, like that's a place where I could meet people my age. They're Black. They're also being very positive. And so I just got very involved at my church as well. And then it kept me out the house too, because I could not stand all the time going home just after school and stuff like that, especially as a teenager. Like, you feel like I should be doing more and I want more to do. And so I was not resentful toward that, but just looking for stuff to do. I was glad that I was engaging myself in things that we socially deem as positive. But nonetheless, now I rely heavily on prayer and planning, like double P's, planning and prayer. Me and God talk through prayer. I establish my relationship through prayer, and God knows my heart and God knows my intentions. And I will continue to build my relationship in that way until I find something that might be stronger for me and my God's relationship. But as it stands, I'm actually happy where I am in my spiritual journey. And then planning, goal setting. I don't do vision boards, but I do see the benefits of people who do create them. And a lot of people say that they're very accomplishing, right? So like they can put some stuff on their vision board and they know at least 2 to 3 things are going to happen out of that. But for me, I do like the opposite. I'm not really like a visual person, and not to say that I can't learn visually or anything like that, but you don't have to throw visuals into anything to excite me or to keep my attention or to make me tune in or get my attention. Like, it's not like that for me. I'm a writer, and so I do so much better at goal setting and accomplishing my goals when I have like to-do lists, when I have things written out by the year, when I have detailed plans for my goals. And so I carry around in my room and in the living room probably 10 different notebooks with 1,000 different things. And even in my phone, I keep a whole bunch of notes. So I'm just really just a writer, and I like to bring all of my thoughts together into centralized places where I often am. And then that way I can update them, or I can stay up and I can continue to write it. But it's the same concept of, like having a vision board. It's just my vision board is really me writing it out versus me providing visuals. And I do appreciate people, because one critique I had about vision boards is like, when you post those pictures and things like that, you're really posting something. I know that it's supposed to be symbolic, but if we're talking about manifestation, you're putting something on there that doesn't belong to you. Like, it's not yours. It's not the originality for you. And it's not unique to you. And I know a lot of people, and I appreciate this about them, who will do their vision board and then like put their face on it, or put something that they have in a picture on there. And that kind of keeps it more unique to them, because if we're talking about manifestation, which in my opinion is a spiritual concept, it has to be true to you. It has to be unique to you. And so I feel like I manifest way more when I'm praying and I'm detailed about, God, here's what's been going on with me. Here's what I want to repent about. Here's what I want forgiveness on. And here's what I need clarity on. But here's some things I want, and let me know if this is meant for me or if it's not. And also when I go write and it's detailed and it's clear and it's unique and it's all of my natural creative ideas without the influence of other people's ideas or how other people see it to look or how it belongs to somebody else. Like, it's literally all mine. And to me, that just brings so much more joy and pride in my manifestation than if I were to have it on a board and belong to somebody else because I saw it in a magazine and that's what I hope to one day have, right? You can have that, but let it be yours, right? Draw out what you want your wedding ring to look like. Maybe write out, I want it to be this color. I want to have it like this along the edges, but make things true to you. And so I know, like, I started this whole spiel about basically analyzing my idea about how I saw conspiracy theories. Like, before I was just like all for it, like that's true. But now I wanted to start taking a more mature approach, and not really involve myself in that topic so much around people who I know who are strong about it. Because, there is some truth behind possible conspiracy theories, but there's also some truth behind this stuff actually happening. And so to understand that, and then I'll continue my journey with my spirituality, with my prayer, with my planning, and just see how this changes over time. But I just wanted to have this conversation with you guys because it was on my mind, and I was just thinking, like, as a human, everything is so 50-50. You're not all knowing, you're not all seeing, and so it's impossible to feel like you'll know everything completely, and a lot of times that makes us feel so out of control and so anxious and so like I need an answer. But it's okay to sit and say, I don't have to involve myself, right? And I can trust in my spirituality. I can trust in my planning. I can trust in my ways of manifestation. I can trust in my higher power to just guide me where I need to go and not have to focus on these other things. And so if this is something that has come up in your head, about conspiracies, or even how you handle religion, or what you do in terms of your spirituality or religion, please comment below. I hope that you all enjoyed today's nighttime news, and I will talk to you tomorrow.